Let's talk about something that's on pretty much everyone's mind in Nigeria right now. It's this really strange feeling, this economic paradox, where the numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger, but for so many of us, it feels like we're actually moving backwards.
I want you to picture this. You're in the market, right? You can smell the spices, hear all the chatter. You go up to a vendor and ask for the price of a bag of rice. And they tell you, that'll be 85,000 naira. And that number, it just hangs there for a second. It's one of those moments that kind of stops you in your tracks.
And then you get this simple but really powerful reply. Yes, but it's still the same one bag of rice. And in that one little exchange, you find the absolute heart of the paradox we're digging into today. The price has completely changed, but the actual thing you're buying, that hasn't changed one bit. So this is the big question, isn't it? How can our wallets be filled with these massive denominations, but our shopping bags feel so much lighter? Okay, let's dive into this and try to unravel the mystery. All right, first things first, that feeling of confusion, that frustration, that's not just in your head. It's a real, measurable economic thing that's happening. So in this first part, we're just going to unpack what that daily experience of living through this paradox actually feels like. Now, to really get a handle on this paradox, we need to wrap our heads around two really important ideas: nominal value and real value. Think of this as the first big clue to solving the whole mystery. So on one hand, you've got nominal value. That's just the number on the price tag, right? Like that 85,000 naira for the race. But on the other hand, you have real value. And that's the important one. It's what that money can actually buy. So what happens when your salary doubles, but the price of everything around you triples? Well, your nominal income went up, but your real purchasing power has totally crashed. You're nominally richer, but in reality, you're actually poor. And look, this isn't just a tiny dip. We're talking about a massive gap opening up between the numbers we see and what they're actually worth. It's led to an estimated 60 to 80% drop in real income for the average household. That number just shows you how deeply this is hitting homes all across the country. So, what in the world is causing this huge disconnect? Well, the main engine driving this whole thing is the changing value of the naira itself. Let's take a look at how this idea of a shrinking ruler is really at the core of the paradox. Just take a look at this timeline. It's pretty dramatic, right? In less than 10 years, the amount of naira you need to get just $1 has multiplied by nearly 8 times. Now, this isn't just numbers on a screen. It's a fundamental change in what our money is worth, and it's often tied to complex things like what's happening with global oil prices and our own domestic economic policies. Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you're trying to measure a room, but your measuring tape keeps stretching out. The numbers on the tape would tell you the room is getting bigger and bigger. But the room itself hasn't changed at all. The naira, it's become that rubber ruler. As its value falls, the price of everything, especially things we import like fuel or machinery, has to go up just to be worth the same amount. You know, since the naira itself is such a shaky yardstick, what if we tried to measure things differently? Let's shift our perspective for a minute and measure cost not in currency, but in something way more personal: our time and our effort. Okay, this table right here, this tells the real story. Back in 2015, a professional earning about 80,000 naira a month needed to work for around 24 hours to buy that bag of rice. Fast forward to today. Even with a salary that's almost quadrupled to 300,000 naira, that very same bag of rice now costs 45 hours of work. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That's nearly double the effort. It's almost an entire extra week of work just to buy the same basic food staple. The nominal numbers, they've gone through the roof, but the real cost, the one we measure in our own time, has gotten so much heavier. And you know, this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is a lived reality, and it has a huge human impact. So let's talk about the psychological and social cost of what it feels like to live on this economic treadmill. The mental weight of all this is just huge. First, there's just the pure exhaustion from constantly having to do mental math, trying to figure out what everything is really worth now. Then you've got your savings just disappearing. How can you plan for the future, for a home, for retirement, when you know your money's going to be worth so much less tomorrow? It also creates this massive disconnect between generations. Older folks remember when 100 naira was a lot of money, and it's hard for them to relate to today's reality. And finally, the goalposts for what it means to be successful just keep moving further and further away, making you feel like you're always running but never getting anywhere. And that's what it feels like, right? Like you're on an economic treadmill. You're running faster and faster, your income numbers are getting bigger, but you're not actually moving forward an inch. It's the perfect illusion of progress, but the reality is just stagnation. So, where does that leave us? How do we actually start to see through this illusion? Well, it starts with learning to see beyond the numbers and really reframing how we think about value itself.
It all boils down to this one crucial difference. Price is just the number you pay, but value is what you actually get. And the real tragedy of Nigeria's inflation isn't just that the prices are so high, it's that we're paying so much more for the exact same or sometimes even less value. In a way, we're all paying a massive premium for stagnation.
And that leaves us with a final and maybe the most important question to think about. If the numbers printed on our money have become an illusion, then how do we start measuring what truly matters? How do we measure our progress, not in naira, but in our well-being, in our security, in our ability to live a life with dignity? That's a question we all really need to be asking ourselves.